Antigone, you have the right to be represented as court-martial by nobody, your detailed defense counsel, or you may be represented by military counsel of your own selection. If the counsel you request is reasonably available, if you are represented by a military counsel of your own selection, you would lose no right. Your detailed counsel can your help in your defense help. However, you waive any rights to request any favoritism. What's the purpose for? The purpose for this part. Antigone, you have the right to be represented as court-martial by nobody, or you may be represented by military counsel of your own selection, if the counsel you choose is reasonably available. Do you understand?
Yes.
In addition, you have the right to be represented by civilian counsel at no expense to the United States. Civilian counsel may represent you alone or along with your military counsel. Do you understand?
Yes.
Do you have any questions about your right to counsel?
No.
Is there anybody that you want to represent you? Which actually you're not given the option.
I guess not.
Both parties have the necessary qualifications and have been sworn. I have been detailed to this court-martial by myself. Antigone, do you understand that you have the right to be tried by court-martial composed of members, and that if you are found guilty of any offense, those members will determine a sentence?
Yes.
Do you also understand that you may request in writing or orally here in the court-martial trial before me alone that if I approve such a request, there will be no members, and I alone will decide whether you are guilty, and if I find you guilty, determine a sentence?
Yes.
If I approve your request for trial by me alone, you give up your right to trial by a court-martial composed of members. Do you wish to request trial before me alone?
Yes.
Your request is approved. The court-martial is assembled. The accused will now be arraigned. Antigone, how do you plead? Before receiving your plea, I advise you that any motions to dismiss any charge or to grant other relief should be made at this time.
Guilty.
Antigone, your plea of guilty will not be accepted unless you understand its meaning and effect. I am going to discuss your plea of guilty with you now. If you have any questions, please say so. Do you understand?
Yes.
The plea of guilty is the strongest form of proof known to the law. On your plea alone, without receiving any evidence, this court-martial finds you guilty of the offense to which you are pleading guilty. Your plea will not be accepted unless you understand that by pleading guilty, you admit every element of each offense, and you are pleading guilty because you really are guilty. If you do not believe that you are guilty, you should not plead guilty for any reason. You have the right to plead guilty, plead not guilty, and place the burden upon the prosecution to prove your guilt. Do you understand that?
Yes.
By your plea of guilty, you waive, or in other words, you give up certain important rights. The rights you give up are, first, the rights against self-incrimination, that is, the right to say nothing at all about these offenses. Second, the right to a trial of the facts by the court-martial, that is, the right to have this court-martial decide whether or not you are guilty based on evidence presented by the prosecution, and if you choose to do so, by the defense. Third, the right to be confronted by the witnesses against you, that is, to see and hear the witnesses against you here in the court-martial, and to have them cross-examined and to call witness on your behalf. Do you understand these rights?
Yes.
If you plead guilty, there will not be a trial of any kind as to the offenses to which you are pleading guilty. So by pleading guilty, you give up the rights I have just described. Do you understand that?
Yes.
By your plea of guilty, this court-martial could sentence you to the maximum authorized punishment, which is death. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Antigone, do you feel that you haven't had enough time to ponder the case?
Yes.
Are you pleading guilty voluntarily?
Yes.
Has anyone tried to force you to plead guilty? No. In a moment you will be placed under oath and we will discuss the facts of your case. What you say is not true. Your statements may be used against you in prosecution for perjury or false statements. Do you understand?
I do.
I'm going to explain the elements of the offense to which you have entered plea of guilty. By elements, I mean the facts which the government would have to prove by evidence beyond a reasonable doubt so you could be found guilty if you pleaded not guilty. When I state each of these elements, ask yourself if it is true and whether you want to admit that it's true. You're ready to talk about these facts with me. Do you understand these elements?
Yes.
So the elements that you're being tried with is that the two brothers, they both ended up killing each other in combat, and one brother, which I specifically stated to not have a burial, you went and buried. Is this correct?
It is.
I stated this because your brother was a disgrace to our nation. Do you have anything to add to this?
He was not a disgrace to his nation.
Why do you feel that?